Do you want me to respond or like?
Yeah, sure. Explain why you believe capitalism is coercive.
Oh, so I believe capitalism is coercive because it forces you to abide by the system, going off of your natural coercion of your body. Basically, you need to support your basic necessities to life. So yes, it is work or die. Yes, it is coercive. Any system that is work or die is coercive. We can obviously go through any of these type of definitions. We go through the definitions of like voluntary, free will, coercion. None of them show that you need a rational actor in order to have coercion. So coercion can be off of something that becomes like naturally, and the system will play off that type of coercion. So,
Okay, so
obviously it's coercive.
I have like three different responses to what you just said, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So your first point was you said capitalism forces you to be part of the system. I mean, I would argue that capitalism is the least system that forces you to be a part of the system. Like, yes or no? Would you think that under socialism someone should be allowed to start like a capitalist firm?
So like a privately owned firm?
Yeah, like with the wage laborers in a socialist economy.
No.
Right. But what about capitalism? Can you start socialist firms? Absolutely. We have socialist firms today. We have worker cooperatives, and they're quite successful because particular people who work good together and who have certain values are able to come together and work in these places, and they work very well together. That's why worker co-ops do so well. Now, the second point you did was work or die. So I think that was kind of ridiculous because any system is really work or die, at least to a certain extent. Like, let's say, one system, all 5 people have to work, and if one of them stops working, that person will die. But then you have another system where you have 5 people, and only 3 of them are working, and 2 of them, they don't have to work, and they're not going to die. But if the other 3 stop working, all of them are going to die. All you're doing is putting the burden on less people. You're not taking away work or die. You're just taking that burden and putting it on less people, which I would argue is even less fair. But I still believe in things like charity, obviously, and I still believe in people being able to live in communes. Like I have a friend, Johnny, he's on TikTok. He lives in a commune in America today, and he doesn't have to use money, and it's a farming commune. Those are normal. What was the last point? I forgot what the last point is, but I'll just stop right there.
Okay, so I want to, you said that in the definition of coercive, it doesn't require a rational actor, right? In the coercion, there's persuade in there. Can a non-rational actor persuade someone?
Can a non-rational actor persuade someone into doing something? That's not what coercion is. Coercion's about force. It's not about persuasion.
Dude, no. In the definition of coercion, it says it's it's use of force or threats to persuade someone into doing something, right?
Force or threats, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, persuading someone.
Oh, persuading someone to do something.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, no, I didn't see that in the.
Can a non-rational actor persuade someone?
Technically, in this situation, yes, it can, because it can play off of the natural coercion that we have. So by this definition of coercion, it doesn't so you don't have to persuade someone by using force or threats. It gets someone to do something. So if you're persuading someone to work by the system saying that if you do not work, you're going to die. Yes, that is persuading someone to be off into coercion. Yes.
How is that persuading someone? Could you explain to me? Or how
because you're getting them to do what you want based upon the systems that precede them.
You don't have to do it though, right?
You
don't have to, right?
What do you mean you don't have to?
You don't have to work, right?
Well, you do in order to suffice your need to live. Yes, you do.
But the other option is voluntary, right? If you want to die, you can voluntarily choose to die, right? Even if you don't.
But I don't think it's a voluntary choice to die. Yes, you can choose to die, but if there's only a choice between dying and working, that's not a choice for everyone, because not everyone wants to die.
Okay, so it's not about the quality of the choices. It's about if someone is initiating force upon the decision making. No one's initiating force upon the decision making. Okay, you are given 2 choices. Okay, you are giving work or die, and this is your choice. I don't care what you do. Okay.
Could you hold on just a second? Jawad. Jawad.
Yeah.
Just say Jawad.
You're all fine, right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Once I get I'll respond whenever I can.
Okay. Like I said, okay. So why is it voluntary if someone can choose to die, but if they don't want to, it's not voluntary?
Because it's not a choice, because you cease to exist. Because it's not like
no one. if you
No one in their
voluntarily
right mind
choose
wants to just choose to
exist,
die. That's not a voluntary decision. That's never a voluntary decision. If
that
someone puts a
literally-
gun to your head, you can choose to die. You
Yeah,
can
but
choose to
someone's
give them your
initiating
money or
force of-
choose to die.
someone's initiating force upon the decision making. And
Why? Why?
What do you mean? Because
Why does there have to be someone
they're-
initiating that force?
because that's what coercion is, right?
We defined multiple types of coercion. So there's coercion, natural coercion, etc. Like
Okay.
it's just using something using force or threats. There does not have to be a rational actor
Okay.
acting upon anything.
Okay. Look, do you remember that video game example we talked about?
Yes. You want to keep talking about that?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to because this is a good example, right? So Ben, Jmite, basically we talked about this. It's basically like, let's say there's creators of a video game, right? And it's basically a video game that has like magical powers. Let's say if you like cancer or something like that, or anything, any kind of disease, right? And this video game is the only thing that can like cure you from this disease, right? So basically, if you keep playing, you'll get rid of that disease, right? Are you forced to play that game?
To get rid of the disease? Well, I mean, you can't play the game if, like, the thing is, in the type of video game like this, no, I would say like that's not even like a good analogy. What I would say is that the settings of the game, they force you to act a certain way upon the game.
But
So let me give an example.
Game, right?
Well, I mean,
If you're in a Call of,
if you want a simple analogy that's also a lot more believable, just say, someone has an antidote to something and they're just like across town and you have to go walk to get it. Is that coercive walking? Is this forced walking? And like, just because they have the antidote way over there and they're not bringing it to you and they're waiting for you to come, are they like forcing you to walk all this way? And anything bad that happens on the way, they force that on you?
No, technically they forced you to do that, but anything upon that, they didn't force you in because that would be other people, applying force onto your walk in between.
Right, but you wouldn't be there if it wasn't for them. I mean, so you do agree that they are forcing you by like, not
Yes.
by you having to go get an antidote?
Yes.
Like,
Yes,
even
by
if
saying,
you're not paying for it, like it's a free antidote. You just have to walk to go get it. Like, I mean, like you have to walk to the emergency room.
yes, they are forcing you to walk. Yes, as a means to get that item from them. Yeah.
Wait,
So like you're misrepresenting what force actually is. Force doesn't inherently mean anything bad. Force just applies something like if I pick up my water, I'm applying force to that water to pick it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It doesn't
you are
mean
applying
anything.
force to the water, but
So I'm technically coercing it, right?
you are applying force.
No, you're not
to the
coercing
water,
it,
but
you're not
force
pushing the water.
is an actual action taken. Like, there's no action being taken. In fact, it's a non-action. It's literally the opposite. If your water bottle stays there and you don't touch it, you're not forcing it not move. You're just not moving it. It's a non-action. It's a non-force. A
But
force
that
must be
doesn't
an
even
action.
apply. That's not even an actual analogy to
No,
what
it's
we're
literally
talking
the
about on
exact
type
same
of
thing.
coercion.
Like
What?
if a water bottle is sitting there and I don't move it, and now the water bottle doesn't move, and I'm the person who can move it, if I move it, I'm applying force. If I'm not moving it, I'm not applying force. But it's going to stay there if I don't move it. Doesn't mean I forced it to stay there.
Yes, but it's not an acting entity. The water bottle can't move itself. So when we're talking about applying
That's not
force
really
to an
relevant.
object,
That doesn't
yes, you're
matter.
applying force. You're not applying an action. But that's not even a good analogy to what we're talking about. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it doesn't even actually apply.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think that. Wait, Ben.
how is that not an analogy? I just want to ask you that. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Because we're talking about you applying movement to an inanimate object, something that cannot move, and instead of like a system. When we're
But
talking about a
that's not what
system,
he was trying to get at. That's not what he was trying to get at.
Yeah, I was just talking about like the difference between action and non-action when it comes to force. I wasn't drawing an exact parallel.
yeah. But the thing is, it's not even relevant to the conversation we're having. When we're talking about non-action versus action, that wouldn't apply to this type of situation because there is an action being applied in the system.
So even then, the business owner is not forcing you because they're not taking action to coerce you, right?
Wait, what'd you say again? Sorry, say that again.
I'm saying that it applies to the business owner because they're doing nothing. Hell, they don't even know the people they're about to hire. They just come in and say, "Hey, look," or like hire me, right? They're not doing anything to they're having a non-action, or whatever you call it. I don't know how to put this in words, but they're having a non-action or whatever. They're doing nothing, but that's how it applies. They're not coercing you because they're literally doing nothing.
Or in the case of like the emergency room workers, they probably don't even know you exist until you get there. Like, how are you implementing force on someone that you don't even know exists, someone that you've never met, someone that you've never interacted with? It just doesn't really make any sense.
Well, technically, you're not doing it. It's the system that precedes you, the system that is playing off
Yeah.
those natural coercion. So the thing is, they enforce it upon the system. It would be like a good analogy for this would be like the laws are the settings, and then the police are the enforcers of those settings. It would work the exact same way in this, except for the police would be the capitalists in this sense.
Doesn't put an emergency room in everyone's house.
No, I was just giving an example of like the enforcer and like the law. Like,
Yeah, well, like what's the system that's forcing on someone to walk to the emergency room? Like, where's the force coming from if it's not from the actual doctors or the hospital owner?
the system.
What system?
Yeah,
Any
Capitalism.
system, literally any system that exists with an emergency room, whether it's communism, whether it's socialism, whether it's capitalism, all these systems are just forcing someone. Like, what is the system? Is it whoever built the roads, the lengths of the roads, whoever built your house, how far away they built your house from the emergency room? Like, what is this?
Private
What's
ownership
the
of the
system?
means of production, where people can own companies
Well,
where you have
I'm
to
talking
work at
about
those
the
in order
case
to
of-
live. It's putting you in a system.
talking
It's
about-
putting you in a game. It's putting you in a state of dependency on the
But-
system.
Okay,
No,
so
I'm
back to
talking about the emergency room, right? So
Oh,
I'm
and
trying to establish this emergency room thing, and then I'm going to carry this over.
If we're talking about the emergency room thing, it's really just your choice of walking into the emergency room. But if given that choice of you wanting to live, that's
It's
technically
your choice, even if you might
No,
die,
but-
correct?
but what-
Yes or no?
But one thing you have to consider is that forces, just because there's a choice involved, doesn't mean that force just completely is out of the picture.
Oh no,
Right.
I agree with you there.
Okay,
I
but
agree. with you.
That's what I was asking. Where is the force?
Yeah.
Yeah, because okay, so if you choose to live, right? Well, given that many people choose to live, for example, with
Sure.
taxation, if you choose to participate in society, you can choose to. You're forced to pay taxes in that society, and you guys believe that taxation is there's force being a.
Well, I mean, I would
implicit
argue
on
that the taxation is theft more comes from the illegitimacy of the state, not that. But you can continue.
Oh, okay.
But
So
wouldn't they work the same as like an entity enforcing you like upon life, because it's a part of the system, right?
Well, I don't think the capitalist system is illegitimate. So that's the difference.
I mean, yeah, else you couldn't be an anarchist and a capitalist at the same time. That's why.
So I think the state is illegitimate. I think capitalism is legitimate.
Wait, who controls the state, by the way?
The members of the government.
Who controls those
Elites.
members of the government?
it's really wealth that controls it.
Controls the
Yeah,
members of the government. They control themselves.
Yeah,
Bad take.
But
Bad take.
we're
It's not a bad
drifting
thing.
from.
Yeah,
If
we're
we're
drifting from
going
the
to the
conversation here. We're
emergency
drifting. Yeah.
If we're going to
Yeah,
the,
no, I
back
just
to the
wanted to say-
emergency room thing, the main point that I'm going at is that your choices, given that your choices, you're forced to act based on those choices. So if I'm forced to survive, if I'm not forced, if I choose to survive, I'm forced to walk to the emergency room.
But
it's whether-
it's that
it's what
choice
really-
part. It's that choice part. You even said if I choose to
Yeah.
survive, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Then
But-
But just because
yeah.
there's a choice doesn't mean it's voluntary. That's
Yeah,
literally
Yeah,
given
no,
that-
I agree. I'm not saying I disagree with you there. I agree with you there. Just because there's a voice, a
So
choice.
who is stealing the time it takes for you to walk to the emergency room?
Who's stealing the time?
Yeah.
That's kind of irrelevant. I mean, it's
No, it's
you're
completely irrelevant. Because again, I'm trying to carry this over. Like, I want to establish this first. Who's stealing your time?
No,
Like, I mean,
because-
it takes time for me to walk to the emergency room. Was it whoever built my house? Was it whoever built the hospital? Who's stealing my time? I mean, that's my time that I'm never going to get back, and I'm not in the emergency room. I'm going on the way to the emergency room. This
well,
is
it's
some
really
effort,
just
my own
nature
effort I
in
have to
general,
put
I guess,
into it.
because it takes time to walk.
Wait,
It's
okay,
just
so-
how it is to the emergency room.
Yeah.
I
so
just want to
technically it is
go
nature.
off. I just want to go off to it's the same topic, obviously, but like kind of a different part. So you said that a rational actor or a non-rational actor can coerce, right? So by that logic, nature is a coercer, right?
No, nature is coercive.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I said. So if
Yeah, sorry.
nature is coercive, why are you blaming capitalism?
Because it plays off of that nature.
Yeah.
But
So if the
that's not
nature is
but that's
coercive and
that's
it
not the
plays off
original-
of that nature, it therefore makes it coercive.
But
Like,
that's not,
how do you not get that?
no. Okay, because that's not the original coercer, right? Like for example, right? So If let me think of an example. If I put actually no, let me think of this. Okay, go back to the video game analogy, right? If you didn't have cancer, any kind of disease, are you forced to play that game?
You just asked the same question.
Yeah, no, because you never really answered that question.
Like, are you forced to play the game? If you want to continue playing the game, then technically, yes, you are forced to play the game. If you want to continue, yeah.
So if you
because you're relating playing the
you're
game
forced
to living life.
Wait. So if you want to do something, you're coerced into doing it?
Technically, yes, because we're talking about you wanting to live. Yes, you are coerced into doing something if you want to live.
How does that make any sense? That's like me getting...
What do you mean?
I have another question. So what if I want to carry on my DNA, my legacy, my family line, right? And in order to do that, obviously I have to have a baby, right? I don't exactly have many options to actually make a baby. You know, I can't just go in my kitchen and bake one up. I have to actually do something with someone else, and that person you could perceive as be benefiting from whatever I'm doing in order for me to get this baby, right? So would that be rape? Because this is my only option. Am I being forced into it, and that's rape suddenly? Like,
it's not rape, but if you want
non-consent thing comes from.
If you want to reproduce, you're gonna have to be forced to have sex.
Because consent is what we're talking about here.
Is that rape?
Fundamentally, right? It's like it just because like nature coerces you into something is it non-consensual on your part? And I would argue,
would you cease to exist if you don't have a kid?
Huh?
Would you cease to exist if you don't have a kid?
That literally does
not. I mean, your family ceased to exist. Your timeline ceased to exist.
But that doesn't stop you from existing, right?
Why
so you can continue to make actions after that, right?
Yeah,
so you're trying to make an analogy of two things that aren't analogous.
It's relevant because when we're talking about in a capitalist system, wait 1 second. When we're talking about in a capitalist system, if you choose to work in wage labor or not, if you cease to exist, basically, if you don't
under my thing, like how what you said in your video, you said capitalists have a monopoly on the means of production. Well, women have a monopoly on the means of reproduction. So I have to go through women. So is it rape? Yes or no? Like,
it's not rape.
So it is consensual.
Yeah, it's consensual if you want to have. If you want to have sex.
Even though, like in a way, like you know, just the way nature is, I'm sort of I don't like using the word force, but you know, I'm sort of I have to do this, right? Like it doesn't really matter that I have to do it. It's still consensual. I still am making the decision. You know, I can make the decision to not do it, even though that's probably not a great decision on my part. That's what I really don't want to do, but I can still make the decision. It's still a decision. It's still consensual.
Wait, so Ben, okay, go ahead. Okay.
Well, as I said before, like if you want to have sex, if you want to reproduce and want to have a baby, then you're forced to have sex to have that baby. So it's
it's rape.
It's not rape. It's not rape.
It's not rape by the person, because it would have to be the person in that sense.
So you're saying
rape is totally different.
Rape is something that applies to law, so there has to be someone who is a victim and someone who is a perpetrator.
If it's non-consensual,
we're talking about different types of force here, because
like
if the perpetrator and the victim, right? The victim would be the person who wants to have sex, but the perpetrator would be nature, right?
Yeah, but
nature is technically forcing you to have a kid. Then if you do that, yeah.
So you believe that every single person who wants to have a kid and has sex is a rape victim?
You understand that there's different types of force.
Force and what's not force. We're talking about if wage labor is consensual or not.
Yeah, and we're saying it's not voluntary because it's obviously not voluntary. Like in the decision.
Like I said, by that same standard, if it's not voluntary, aka non-consensual, then sex in order to have a kid would not be voluntary, aka consensual. Therefore, it would be rape because non-consensual sex is rape.
Well, okay.
It's like a very close analogy. Like really,
it's
like
close, but not close enough.
It's literally the exact logic.
It has a monopoly on what I need in order to achieve my goal. Right. So in a capitalist economy, I'm like, okay, I need money. Why do I need money? Because I want to buy food. Why do I want to buy food? Because I need to eat. Why do I need to eat? Because I want to live. Why do I want to live? Because I want to be happy. I want to experience this. I want to experience that. It's just a circle of wants and needs. It's a never-ending circle of wants and needs. And it's the same thing with this, right? why do I want to have a baby? Because in order to, because in order to have my legacy go on, I need to have a baby. I can't have my legacy go on like in this way, my DNA going on if I don't have a baby. I need to have the baby in order to do this. And then I want to do that because, again, a circular thing of wants and needs. Like, I mean, I think it's a pretty close comparison.
Yeah, and it actually is. It's a closer comparison. Yeah, then it's a closer comparison than like many other leftists may think. Because, yeah, I want to have sex, or as I said before, I want to have a baby, so I need to have sex. So I'm basically forced to have sex based on my choice, right? But in wage labor, it's essentially kind of the same thing. Given that people want to survive, given that that's like a basis for everybody's wants, we're forced to engage in wage labor in a free market. It's literally the logic that's here.
By nature, right?
Yes, there's both a force applied on you, but like the thing is, you're not getting that rape is like a different type of force, and like it applies someone that can be like that in a sense. Rape does require a rational actor in that sense.
The thing is that I don't think you guys understand is that coercion and force itself is not inherently immoral.
Yeah,
right?
no, I don't believe anything is inherently moral or like immoral.
But it's what
I mean, I'm not arguing like
does.
this
It's
on
what
morality.
capitalism does. It takes advantage of this need for people to survive in a capitalist system, for the capitalists to steal the labor value of the workers, right? And this goes back to the labor theory of value because based on like
maybe we can kind of go into this, like whether or not it's actually theft. So let's say like it is consensual, but even then, if it let's say it is consensual, but even then, theoretically, we could talk about like surplus value and stuff like that. We can talk about like whether it is theft or not. So you can like state your full position on that, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, based on the labor theory of value, because workers are forced into engaging in wage labor in order to survive, right? There needs to be, in order for capitalists to get profit, they take advantage of the workers' need to survive. And the market wage that the workers are getting paid, that the wage that the capitalist negotiates with the worker, is less than the value that the worker puts in. Therefore, wage labor is theft, and the worker doesn't, even though the worker kind of negotiates with the capitalist, the negotiation is not that much in control of the worker. And the worker has no choice in order for the worker's ultimate goal of survival.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about this, you have to first prove that capitalism is coercive. And I don't mean to be rude, but you have not proved.
Oh, no. Like I said, right? I mean, he kind of went back on what I said right there. But even if capitalism, surplus value and all that, that's not dependent upon whether or not capitalism is coercive. Like it's really not. Like surplus value would be something else entirely.
I was just giving my position on labor theory of if capitalism is, or wage labor is theft. But I wasn't talking about if capitalism is specifically coercive. And I keep reiterating the same point. It's just that given that our ultimate goal is to survive, we must engage in wage labor. We are forced to engage in wage labor based on our choice. And the capitalists take advantage of that and extract our labor value to gain profit.
If the ultimate goal, okay, so let's say the ultimate goal is to become an Olympic champion, right? Are you
I kind of wanted to just go into surplus value instead of going, because we kind of.
I just want to ask this last question. I kind of want to ask this last question. If your ultimate goal in life, let's say your dad was an Olympic champion, you really want to become it. You're so influenced to become an Olympic champion, right? Are you forced to work out?
Am I forced to work out?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
like to train.
Yes, you're forced to work out, because if you don't work out, you can't compete with the other fucking.
Who's forcing you though? You don't have to become an Olympic. You don't even have to consider it. Bro.
Well, given your choice, you're forced to work out.
Who's forcing using the term consent?
Okay. So who's forcing you though?
It's your choice. Your choice is for you.
It's your choice, right? It's your choice. So technically, no one is forcing you to become an Olympic champion. No one's forcing you to train, right?
Yeah.
So
Technically, not a specific person, but that doesn't have to. That doesn't. You don't need a rational actor for coercion. That's the whole argument that we were making in the beginning.
okay. So
It's not a specific person.
that every
it's
single
your
Olympic
choice.
champion, you believe that every single person in the Olympics was forcefully. They were forced to work out. They had no choice. They couldn't back down or anything like that. They were forced to work out.
If they want to compete with other people, yes.
It's not about that. It's
Yeah,
not about
that's
that.
important.
It
That
is
does not
about
matter.
that.
That literally does not matter. That literally does not matter. That literally.
It really depends on your definition of, or like what type of force you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not about the quality of the decisions. It's about if someone is initiating force upon that decision making. Okay, right?
Oh, if you're talking about like people initiating force, then no one's initiating force on you to become an Olympic champion.
Okay, so who's initiating force in capitalism?
Well, it's the people's need to survive.
You don't need to survive though. Needs are subjective.
People. Do you think? Okay, here's a question. Do you think that people needing to survive is pretty universal?
That literally does not matter.
It does matter.
Just because the majority wants to live doesn't mean you're forced to live.
Well, okay, but like, given that people are living, given that people want to live, like, it.
Okay.
People are forced to engage in wage labor based on their choice to live.
Okay, you know what?
It's really not that hard to understand.
No. I know what you're getting at, and it's not hard to understand my argument. But Bean, go ahead. Whatever your argument, because I'm.
Okay. Well, as far as surplus value goes, I don't believe in surplus value. Because, I mean, of course, I don't believe in labor theory of value. Let's try to break this down in some sort of like equation or something, right? So someone is being paid like $15 an hour, and they're producing something, and these products being produced are worth like, I don't know, $20, right? And you're making massive amounts of these products, and you could say like one worker every hour is making like 2 of these products or something. Okay, so like $15 versus $40 profit, right? But obviously there's other things that go into this, like materials, and also there's value added through the actual allocation done by the managers, the owners, right? Because if you don't have this proper allocation done, then it's going to be completely useless. Having all these workers together and trying to work, if you're not having things organized and stuff like that. So there's value added through that, and that's something that Cantillon talked about, like I don't know if he did it way before Marx. He did it way before. He was before. I think. Wait, let me look real quick. This isn't really necessary to the debate, but I'm just checking. Richard. I think he was pre-Marx, actually. Cantillon, right?
I have no idea. I don't know what you're asking me.
Yeah. He was pre-Marx. So this was he was talking about this stuff like before Marx was even born, I think.
Wait, Cantillon isn't like Cantillon effects?
I think, I don't know. Is Cantillon effects named after him?
I just assume so,
yeah. Yeah. But he was actually pretty basic. Most people don't know about him, but he was an economist like way before Marx. Anyways, there's value added through many things like advertising, making people want things more, making people value things more. Like that's the whole point of advertising, not only to let people know about it, but make things more appealing. That's why like everyone knows what freaking M&M's is, right? But we still see M&M's commercials. Why is that? Because M&M's commercials increases sales. If things are funny, like the Geico the Geico commercials with the cavemen. Everyone knew who Geico was, but these Geico commercials with the cavemen became super popular. Geico's revenue skyrocketed just because people thought this was funny, and they get that in their head. They think about Geico, And so that when they're looking for insurance, they might think, oh yeah, Geico, I just saw this commercial yesterday. Blah. So lots of different things adds value to the final product, right? Not just not labor. And all those things are adding value because of the subjective opinions of the individual consumers.
Yeah, we are talking about two different things of value when we're talking about the labor theory of value. Labor theory of value is different than like what individual people value. And it's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try my best to explain it. But basically, it's how markets work. When investment initiates, right, investment happens when there's a demand of a product, right? We all agree that prices are determined by supply and demand. So when there's a demand for a product that's higher than the supply, investment comes in and increases the supply to meet that demand. But then when there's too much investment, because sometimes it's hard to make that exact investment to match supply and demand. When there's too much investment, their supply would go over demand, and then price would fall below demand. And then, the price would fall because there would be more supply than demand. So what happens is a price falls, and then investment drops below it. So basically, when investment oscillates around this objective value in markets, and this value is pretty much close to the cost of production. When price falls below the cost of production, it's not profitable anymore. There's no investment. So based on how price oscillates around cost of production, there's this objective value that arises within the very nature of markets. And this is that value that Marx was talking about, and that is based on proportionally to the amount of labor that is put in. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Or I can try to...
You're talking about socially necessary labor.
I'm going to be honest, I'm not good at labor theory.
Socially necessary labor, the labor embodied into something gives it some sort of intrinsic value.
Yeah.
Some sort of embodied value.
Yeah, essentially based on how price oscillates around the cost of production, and the cost of production is, it requires labor to produce things, then we can say that price oscillates around, the objective value that price oscillates around is proportional to the amount of labor that's put into it. So based on that, the labor theory of value exists in every single commodity, and there's an intrinsic value in every commodity that relates to the market value of the commodity that is based on labor.
You can find correlations between, like the labor inputs and the actual prices, but this isn't really relevant fundamentally, because even under marginal utility, like this would be a fact. Like marginalists don't reject this. This fits under marginal utility.
Okay, but
like, I mean, labor is a cost. It's a material. I mean, not really material, but it's an input, right? And inputs have certain costs, and a valuable input, which labor is a pretty valuable input. There's going to be correlations with the final price, right? Just like gold. Gold's a very valuable input, and things with more gold in them are going to have these higher prices that correlate with how much gold you put into it. It doesn't really mean anything like there's some sort of intrinsic value that comes from labor. It just means labor is a cost.
Well, this intrinsic value is like, it comes from how markets act. And yeah, labor is a cost, but this intrinsic value that happens, it shows that each commodity is proportional to the amount of labor, like the value of each commodity is proportional to the amount of labor that's put into it. So when we're saying that,
like, that's not always true, right? Like, I mean, what about like wine? If you have the same wine and the same amount of labor put into it, and you have an 8-year wine and then an 18-year wine, it's literally the exact same amount of labor, but it's going to be valued massively differently. The prices are going to be massively different.
Well, I guess the 8-year wine and the 18-year wine, they're different commodities, right? And I guess when we're saying that based on time, you do have a point that time is also like a factor. It kind of makes this complicated, right? because based on, when time goes on, the price of products drop. But then like the market kind of shifts and the intrinsic value is different based on time and or like marginal utility or anything. But
I mean, yeah,
there's
time
still
plays a
that
role
value
in many
present
different
there.
areas.
There's
Like,
still that value present there.
There's still things like time preference. You know, someone can value a marshmallow in front of them more than they value 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes because they just want to eat the 1 marshmallow now.
Yeah.
Like if they're given the option, like I'll give you 2 marshmallows, like the Stanford marshmallow experiments. I'll give
That's a
you 2
subjective value,
marshmallows
but
in
again, we're talking about like the
15 minutes.
value that markets have within each commodity. Like those 2 marshmallows that you were talking about, you weren't referencing to the market value of the marshmallows. You were just referencing to how an individual values it.
Well, market value reflects on, you know, tons of individuals, and each who have their own time.
Yeah, exactly. Tons of individuals, and then this market value is an objective value.
Each have their own time preference, and time preference can drastically change, like even from geographical location.
Yeah, exactly. The location can also have effect. Yeah, these are all effects on like price generally, but then this price still oscillates around the cost of production, because based on how the cycle of investment functions, and because of this, because of labor being proportional to the commodity, we can say that wage workers, when they're producing commodities, they are producing a value that's less than the value that they're getting paid. I mean, more than the value that they're getting paid. And I guess we're talking about...
Yeah, I would disagree with that, right? Because even then, you're not talking about value, you're talking about money. And money does reflect on value, but it's not some sort of like fixed value over time. Again, this is a time difference, right? So there's a time difference between when you're producing something and then when you're getting paid and then when it's actually going out into production. So like if you're saying like, you know, they're putting in like $20 and then they're getting out $15, like this still doesn't really mean anything, because that's not value. Like $1 doesn't have like a fixed amount of value. It changes over time, especially from person to person. So like if this production process is going on for like 5 years, right? Like we're producing a car. The average production is about 5 years from start to finish, from the blueprint all the way to you have the cars being sold. 5 years on average, right? So in the beginning, you have people doing certain things. Then you have more people doing certain things, and you have more people doing certain things. Those very first people, sorry about the sirens. I live across the street from a fire department, so that kind of sucks.
Give it a second.
So those first people, right, just because they're not getting the full value of their labor 5 years from now, or the full value of their labor 5 years from now, just because they're not getting all that money that they're supposedly putting into it, doesn't mean the value is still different. Like they could value that money now a lot more than they would value more money down the line. Like even if you gave them the option, like I'm sure even if you gave them the option, a majority of the time they would take the money now. Like again, goes back to like the marshmallow thing, and that's where it becomes more relevant when it comes to money, because again, money isn't value. Yeah, it just reflects on value.
Okay, well, even if there's time preference within the commodity, it doesn't reflect accurately on how workers get paid, like based on their paychecks, right? Because paychecks,
well, we're talking about the value difference between what is being produced and what is being paid the workers, and that's just not something that you can objectively say because of the workers' time preference and each individual's time preference.
Okay, so the thing is, it's not necessarily a time preference, because people who are working like that, they're doing it out of necessity to live and not because they're doing it out of a time preference. So yes, there could be a time preference for different types of workers, but you cannot apply that to all workers in the system.
Yeah, Parker,
Spectrify, this ain't your
am I not allowed to talk?
Okay.
It still is time preference. Like, I mean, there's many different ways that you can invest your time and invest your money, and you can even start your own business. And even then, like all these workers could start their own business and invest their money into it. And even then, they're not getting the profit until all the way down the line. Like, I mean, time preference is still always there. And even then, like when you're talking about, oh, well, you're doing this to get your money now, that's still time preference. You're getting it to get your food and stuff now. That's still time preference. Like that, you just literally just described time preference.
But time preference would go against it, or it would be, it being a necessity, it would go against it being a preference, because there's a difference between a preference and necessity. That they are literally like contradicting.
No.
If something's a necessity, I don't have a preference on that specific thing.
Well,
You know what I mean?
We're talking about time preference. This
Yeah.
isn't just like a simple like, oh, I prefer this, I prefer that. It's very it's a little bit more than that.
But
It's
isn't
how
that
much
what
you
preferences
it's
are
how much
upon
you
time?
value things. It's the time in which you value things. You value them more now, you value them more later, and then for what reason?
Well, even if there was a time preference that workers had, for example, like if you're making a car, right, and that car is going to be sold in 5 years, but you're getting paid now, and you value the wage you're getting paid now more than the value of the car that's being sold 5 years. But what if you don't know like the worker's individual preference? What if the worker would rather have the value of the car in 5 years? They would rather take that than the wage that they're being paid now. But just because of survival, it's like this whole other entity that's forcing workers to choose the wage instead of the value of the car in 5 years. That's the problem. That's like the main problem, and why capitalism and wage labor is unethical, because it takes advantage of workers' survival, and it just makes people get a wage way lower than the value of the car, for example, for 5 years, or like the value that they're producing. Like, even if that time preference exists, it still shows that capitalism can be unethical.
I mean, what you think is ethical or not isn't really relevant here. Like, this isn't really an ethics debate. Right? We're talking about whether or not surplus value is actually being taken. And that my point is that's not, even if I were to concede to the labor theory value, which I didn't, then that would be something that's impossible to prove just solely because of time preference theory. And there's many other things that you go into, but solely because of time preference theory, that's something that's impossible to objectively prove. That's not an objective statement that you can make.
It's not
yours isn't objective either, because you have, in order to have a preference, you have to have choices, because you'd have to prefer something over another thing. You know what I mean? Like,
again,
if you don't have a choice to have it in 5 years because the capitalist owns that means to produce, you don't have that choice. You can only choose to get the money now so that you can maybe do it in the future. You know, you don't get that choice between getting the value of it later, because the capitalist owns that.
That's completely irrelevant to time preference theory, and that's
how is that completely irrelevant?
It's completely irrelevant to time preference theory, because again, it's not about just like, oh, I prefer this or I prefer that. It's about how much you value something, how much you fundamentally value something.
Yeah, but if you value that something a little more, then you prefer that. It takes into account preference.
That's why it's
called time preference.
Other things that come into play here are things like risk factor, right? So when it comes to like time preference and risk factor, you know, like let's say, you know, we have like a yearly production this time, right? And at the end, we sell the product and we make profit, or some years we might make loss. Whenever you make loss, you still have that wage guaranteed to you throughout the entire year. You don't have to wait till the end of the year and then see if you make profit or loss. That's another thing that comes into play with time preference. So even if your boss makes a loss at the end of the year, you still got paid that entire time, even though you supposedly didn't make the full value of your labor, in your opinion, because of surplus value and stuff like that. You still got paid throughout the entire year because you're being paid weekly and bi-weekly. So because capitalism isn't a system of profit, it's a system of profits and losses.
I mean, bosses get paid too. It's part of the production cost of the company. They get a salary under the company. So even if the company does negative, they still get paid.
Yeah, I know that, but we're not talking about the boss's pay. We're talking about the overall profits.
Yes, but you're
Like
talking about risk
in
factor.
this case, it's irrelevant whether or not, like the boss can be getting paid, is getting paid for how much value he adds to the company, or else they wouldn't be getting paid. If they didn't add value to the company, they wouldn't be getting paid at all. Like
Well,
even
they
if they're the
can.
person who started it and everything, like they added value to everything by virtue of starting it in the first place. But even then, when you have like CEOs of corporations and stuff like that, like they're not getting paid all this money just to do it. They're getting paid because of the demand for their particular set of skills
Yeah,
for their particular labor.
well, actually, not
Like I mean, if they weren't
necessarily.
worth that, they wouldn't be getting paid that.
Oh, that's not very true at all. That's not true at all. They're able to, when they're on the board of the directors, they're able to change how much that they're paid. The workers themselves are not able to do that because they are not owners in the company. That's why I argue for things like worker cooperatives, because then they have, a vote on those specific things, to increase their wages in the company based upon their value that they added. But like,
Yeah, why would I increase my pay like way over how much value I add to the company?
yeah,
Then
you
I'll just
wouldn't
make
reduce
the
your pay.
bosses
It's
of the
because they
company.
have it's because they have the power. They sit on the board of directors. They can keep increasing
No,
their pay
they
regardless
reduce
how
pay
much
all the
value they
time.
add to the company.
They reduce pay all the time. Like in some years, like entire years, the average CEO pay will drop 50%. And this is normal. The average CEO pay in the United States fluctuates a lot. And that's because it's dependent upon profits and losses. But the worker pay is not, or not overall most of the time. It might kind of change from like year to year or production process to production process, but while they're actually getting paid, it doesn't. And it's definitely not going to change that much. It's definitely not going to drop 50% in 1 year. Like
Yeah, because they're not getting paid as much.
if worker pay was
CEOs are getting
tied to
paid
CEO
100
pay,
times
you would
more.
just get like lose half your income in 1 year sometimes. Which I don't think most people would want that. Which again, like this is about risk factor and stuff like that.
What companies does that happen to? Like where the CEOs like get their paycheck dropped like 50% in a year?
I mean,
I've
that's
never
the
seen that
average.
happen.
I don't know like any specific companies off the top of my head. You can look this up, like, fluctuations in CEO pay from year to year and find different data on it.
Wait, okay, Ben. So you said that you can't objectively prove that there's a intrinsic value within markets, like that is proportional to labor. You said that you can't objectively prove that. Is that what
I
you
said that you can't objectively prove that there's value being taken away from the worker that's not being reinstituted to them. Like that they're getting less value than they put in.
Oh, okay. So I do kind of see what you're saying, because it is kind of hard to show that the objective value that markets price oscillates around is that if that's being reflected onto wages and workers getting like the surplus value existing and workers getting paid less than the hypothetical value that they're creating more. But it is kind of it does show that based on the correlation that labor with price and labor with the market value, based on that correlation, we do see that the value of labor, it's so hard to explain in words, but like
again, like we're talking about the actual money, like money measurements,
the money measurement. Yeah, the money measure. Yeah. We see that money, it's like reflected on value, so therefore it's reflected on also the labor, based on labor being proportional to the value. It's money is not just reflected on subjective value, but it's also reflected on an objective value that markets have. The nature of markets, it's based on the nature of markets. So when that happens, we see that the wages of the workers that are determined by the market kind of partially is also reflected on the amount of labor that is put into what the worker creates. So like if the value that the worker creates is what there is based on the worker's labor. That, for example, a worker making 10 cars, that's their labor value. It's based on the amount of labor that the worker put in to make those cars, based on what value is proportional to labor.
Mhm.
Do you kind of see what I'm saying? It's so hard to explain, but
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I still hold my position, but I kind of got to wrap this up now. I mean, if you guys want to
Okay.
stay in here and
I
chat,
want to talk about one more thing. So
yeah, if
in
Theo
one
wants to talk
in
about
one
stuff.
in one of your recent
Wait,
videos
but
about me,
right before I go, because I'm gonna have to go, and then y'all can, Spec can join in, and y'all can all do whatever you want. So I just like Googled this, and like right off the bat, Activision Blizzard CEO reduces salary by 50%. Disney CEO reduces salary by 50%. Steiker's CEO reduces takes 50% pay cut. Eaton to cut CEO salary by 23%, following a 50% cut. Again, like over and over and over, this happens regularly, and a lot of people don't realize that, especially now.
Can you link those, or did they get any type of like bonuses, etc.?
Yeah.
Like they can get payment other ways, just by other than salary. You understand that, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, they have their own like investments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
okay,
But
so
if you just
like
Google like
bonuses.
CEO pay drop 50%, then like a ton of articles will come up for a ton of different companies.
one of the things I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, guys.
Head out.
All right.
See you later. You said in one of your videos about me in comments, right? So I looked at the comments, right? And your replies to them. So this was about the healthcare one, right, Parker? And you said, or somebody said, why are you entitled to someone else's property, right? And you don't believe in property rights, do you?
I don't believe in private property.
Okay. And it says, it depends on the property. If they own necessities for people to survive, then I would say that you are entitled to it, and it's unethical if they continue to hold necessities from people that needs them. We are talking about the means to produce. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I already asked this, Parker. In the debate, but I just want to ask Jmite too. Do y'all both believe in bodily autonomy, like the negative right to bodily autonomy?
I believe in bodily autonomy. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I do.
Okay. Good. So do y'all? And I'm assuming y'all believe in consent as well, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Consent's important, right? So, using these two, we can assume that the reason why we believe in bodily autonomy is because we have the right to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we say right to ourselves, we have the right to our body or my body. So it would imply that we all believe in self-ownership, right?
No, I don't. It doesn't imply that. It just
Why?
implies that we have total control of our body, but like
That's what
that
self-ownership
doesn't
is.
mean that our
That's
body is
self-ownership.
property.
That's self-ownership.
Self-ownership.
Body is property.
Yeah, so
Body
no,
is
self-ownership just says you have exclusive control over your thoughts and actions. If you agree to that premise, you believe in self-ownership.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, okay,
Well,
then.
then yeah.
Okay,
I agree with that. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so since we believe in self-ownership, that would make you believe in property rights, right?
No.
No,
Do you believe
I
your
think
body?
property rights are different.
Okay.
Property rights aren't. I know where you're going with this.
Wait.
Property rights
Okay.
are consentfully taking it from other people. When you own the private
What do you mean?
property, you're not consentfully doing it, because we don't believe that capitalism is voluntary. So we don't think it's voluntary for them to own the means to produce over you.
I wasn't going.
You weren't going there with that? Okay. I was
No.
just saying.
Okay.
That's
So
what
you don't believe your body is your property, right? You don't.
Yeah, our body's not property. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why is it not? What is property? What is property?
Property.
No,
What
you
is
guys
property?
would still think it's property, just personal property, not private property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But you'd still hold it to be property. There's a whole problem with personal and private dichotomy, with like personal, like the legitimacy of ownership not coming on like what has actually been attained. But that's a different conversation.
Wait. So I wanted to ask, like, what determines private and personal property?
Private property is property that's used in a market. It's used to
make profit. To make profit.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Right. So if we not only agree that our body is property, whether that be personal, private, whatever y'all believe in, we can assume, or we our body is used to make profit, right? Such as our hands in the workplace, right?
Well, we have to prove that our body is property in general. But you guys conceded
Well,
that.
you conceded to that.
Wait, hold
That
up.
body's
I
property.
didn't concede that our bodies are
Sure.
personal
Okay.
property, but Parker
we
did.
Okay. So let me
wait,
ask this about
hold up.
Parker. Let me talk to
to-
Parker. So
okay.
Parker, if you believe that your body is your property, right, and the only way to determine if something is private or personal property, or excuse me, to determine if something is private property is that if it is used to make profit in the market, that would mean that our body is private property because our body is used in the markets, right?
I would say private property is the private ownership of the means of production. I wouldn't say it's used for profit. You can use for profit in different ways.
So do we not have private means? Is our body not private means of production? Like our bodies?
Well, we are like a body is our means to produce. We can't produce anything other than like actions with our body. So we can't suffice our need to live based upon our like ownership of our own body.
Wait, hold up. If we operate under the supposition that that we are property, and the distinction between personal and private properties is based off of whether or not this property generates capital. Like if I own a factory that doesn't do anything, you would still consider that legitimate. Like if I lived in the factory, it wouldn't matter, right? All that's relevant is that whether or not I'm generating capital. So if I use my hands to generate capital, then that by your standard, it would be considered private property, and therefore your hands would be illegitimate.
And they would be communally owned, right?
No.
But why? But we're going off your standards. We're literally going off your standards. You can,
Yeah, I know you're trying to, but you're also
No,
strawmanning the point.
that is literally not strawmanning. That is literally not strawmanning at all. I am not strawmanning because
I laid out the premises and the conclusion. If you see like any parts you disagree with, or where you see like a non sequitur, we could talk about those.
Because Parker, not only you conceded to the fact that your body is your personal property, or just property, right?
Yeah, your body is personal property.
Okay,
but
so
the thing is, just because you're producing, making money.
Let me continue. I asked you that. Okay, you said that in order to determine if something is private property, it needs to it's property that's used to generate capital. Or
that's not what I said. I said private ownership of the means of production. Didn't I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, but what differentiates private and personal property? It's the generation.
Yeah, that's what I asked you.
But it's not okay. No, I said the means to produce. My water bottle is not a means to produce. My house is not a means to produce. I mean, unless you use it for other things, but.
Well, I mean, wait, producing capital though, like okay, I can produce like CO2 out of my nostrils, but that doesn't matter. Like production in a vacuum is sort of irrelevant to the Marxian distinction. We're talking about the generation.
Means of production is like a term, not like just the means to produce.
Yeah, but means of production. Yeah, but the differentiation comes from the generation of capital, so it all just ties back to my original point. So like means of production would still work.
I mean, you can generate capital off the means of production, but that's not what the means of production completely are.
That's sort of the whole premise of the means of production. The whole opposition to capital that Marxists hold
is that you can create profit off of that private ownership of the means of production. But the thing is, we're talking about personal and private property.
No, but we're asking how do you determine it. We're asking how do you determine that.
What do you mean? How do you determine that?
What is the relevant?
Yeah, what is the distinction between private and personal property? Like Jmite said that. Wait, it was you, Jmite, that said if it generates capital, right?
Yeah, I said that private property is property that generates capital.
Okay, so he conceded.
Any property that's used in the business that, I think that private property is not really like a philosophical term, but it's more just like a functional term, right? It's like what businesses have and like what like land of a business and stuff like that.
But all we're doing is we're going off y'all's standards.
Okay, so operating. Okay, so assume that the personal and private property dichotomy is legitimate. Assume that we are personal property. Assume and then we go to the distinction between and we're assuming, I don't know if I already said this, but we're assuming you are personal property. Your body is personal property. Now, Parker, what are the means of production?
The means to produce? You mean like industry, factories, things like that?
Yeah. But what is a means of production? Like what makes something? The
you're meaning just give me to say like to generate capital. That's what you're trying to say. Like the thing is, there's like a difference between like generating capital and using your body to generate capital. I think that like you're not getting that there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, but the principle that I'm like comparing them to and the aspect in which they're analogous is the fact that they both generate capital. Therefore, by the Marxist standard, your body is now private property and is therefore illegitimate.
and then it's communally owned.
Well,
Go ahead.
when we're saying we're
Slave.
abolishing private property, we're not. Even if our body is technically private property, we will logically we could exclude that and say
But
that.
then it's
Wait, doesn't that demonstrate an
yeah.
inconsistency?
Yeah,
within
that's
the
logically
Marxist
You can't
analysis?
abolish someone's body. That's what they're talking about.
No,
I mean, if
that's
you want
not
to, if you
how-
just want to play like a semantical game, just to like dance around these terms in order to like, maybe like make a point about this, it doesn't change the fact that we're talking about private ownership of the means of production. We're talking about industry. You cannot abolish like a specific person because we use our body to generate
But our
capital. 'cause
body
we
is
have to.
Wait,
property.
wait,
Our
wait,
body is
wait.
property. You can
But
see
I
that our
didn't-
body
I
is
didn't-
property.
Wait, but the point that was made was not whether or not you could abolish it. That's totally irrelevant. It's about you guys deem private property illegitimate and personal property legitimate. Now, if we can demonstrate that your body under your standard would be private property, then you would also have to agree that your body under your framework must be illegitimate.
But what would that mean?
That's like a. It's like not. I guess
Wait,
what's it
wait,
called?
wait,
Non sequitur.
wait. Hold on, Parker. Did you say like what does that mean?
Yeah, no. What would that entail then? Like, what are you entailing
Yeah,
by
so
saying it's
unless
illegitimate?
unless you agree that this person's like own body is illegitimate, you would then have to agree that either you agree to it and you remain consistent, or you disagree that a person's own body is illegitimate, and then it reveals an inconsistency within the Marxist dichotomy.
But how would that even affect what we're talking about?
It demonstrates that your standard is inconsistent, or
How is the
otherwise,
standard
or you.
inconsistent?
Or you're
Okay,
conceding.
well, because that would be a special pleading.
What would be the special pleading?
The fact that would you say that this person's body is illegitimate?
But why does it matter if it's illegitimate or not?
But my whole
In that
premise is
sense.
okay. Is the person's body legitimate or illegitimate? That's the key question. I just want you to answer that. and we can
I'll go down your way of thinking. We'll say it's illegitimate.
Okay,
I mean
yeah,
illegitimate
then-
then.
Okay, yeah, no. If someone's body's illegitimate, then you guys are perfectly consistent. That's fine. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
What's
So,
what does
I
it
don't
mean
even-
when a body-
I mean,
Wait.
the dichotomy we've really drawn out is either you believe someone's own body is illegitimate, or you have to agree that your thing's
Wow.
inconsistent. It's one or the other.
What does it mean that a body is illegitimate? What does that mean?
Yeah, like, what?
That's exactly what it means. Actually, your
No,
body.
okay. They're asking because they're. I mean, I don't even have a perfect understanding. Like, what do you mean by illegitimate? Like, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Illegitimate meaning like
Like privately owned.
they
or
don't
exclusive
they
control?
don't like they don't recognize that this is like a proper ownership. Like this isn't something that should be recognized.
Okay.
Why
so,
would
yeah,
we
that
not
would be-
recognize? Wait, go ahead, political minor.
He's basically saying like should
Like something we should respect.
should people's like have private or not private ownership, like exclusive ownership of their body? That's pretty much what he's asking.
Or actually, wait, I'd
Should
like
be
to correct
recognized.
myself. Actually, even if you agree that the person's body is illegitimate, I would still say that there's still an innate contradiction. Because if you simultaneously hold that bodily autonomy is legitimate, but a person's own body is illegitimate, that's a contradiction there. So you fall into a contradiction either way.
Double homicide.
So both ways a contradiction.
Yes.
So there is no actual like way you could go that's right.
not
Basically,
with
that's a
not with
logical
Marxist
fallacy, right?
analysis. Not with a Marxist analysis. You can still provide an alternative analysis. I'm saying no matter how you look at it with a Marxist from a Marxian lens, you're wrong. That's all I'm saying.
But you never even said why it being illegitimate would even matter in the first place.
That's yeah. My whole point is that I think I just outlined that, but it's fine. Basically, if your body is illegitimate, then you cannot hold bodily autonomy to be legitimate. Then, if you don't hold bodily autonomy to be legitimate, then I mean,
And you would be consistent. Yeah, that's the only way.
yeah. I mean, Minder asked you at the beginning if you believe in bodily autonomy, and you agreed. So I mean,
Yeah,
either
I
you
do
have to
believe
give
in
up one
bodily
of-
autonomy, but
yeah,
you're
so you
not
have to
giving up
either
your
give up
bodily
one of your
autonomy
choices.
by changing the system. That literally genuinely makes no sense.
I mean,
By
I
not
guess
having
there-
your,
I mean,
you're
I guess there-
you're basically playing into that thing where it's like a performative contradiction if you don't
That's
believe
not
in
what
property
the
rights.
That's not what he's saying.
contradiction is.
That's not what he's saying.
No. Sorry, I'm trying to go off like knowledge I have from like other debates, but like
Yeah, argumentation. Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying either.
okay, no.
Yeah, we can talk about the calculation problem now if you'd like.
Okay. Well, let's.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Sure,
Actually, you know
I
what?
mean,
I don't really know much about the ECP. I haven't really studied this, so I'm just.
Sure.
I'm not gonna really say anything.
Okay.
Okay, wait, are you both gonna be here? Because that's fine.
Oh yeah, I can.
I'll
Okay,
be here.
yeah, sure. Okay, Parker, I was in your live the other day, and you said we could just like ask people what they want, right?
Yeah, based upon the internet, you can ask people what their subjective wants or needs are to
Uh-huh.
quantify how to allocate those resources. Yeah.
Yeah. Except there's a problem with that in the fact that the ECP already presupposes you have this knowledge. So
Presupposes you have the knowledge that of what people subjectively want to need. So then what
yeah,
would be
the
the problem with
demands,
allocating those resources?
because there's different production processes.
Okay, what production process? You mean talking about like using like the money in order to get like
No,
like
there's no
get the
money.
labor necessary to like provide those commodities?
Yeah, no. When we're talking about production processes, we're just saying like there's these different ways to produce X goods. Now your solution deals with oh well, why don't we just ask people what they want? Except that's already presupposition made in like it's actually the first presupposition made in the calculation problem. Like Mises, the way it is differentiated from the knowledge problem which Hayek presented was that he's being generous to the socialists. He's granting, he's assuming away all incentives. He's assuming you have full knowledge of consumer demands. He's assuming you have full knowledge of the technological recipes. He's assuming all these different things. So your solution doesn't actually deal with the calculation problem. Assuming that I grant that your solution is viable, it would only solve this one aspect of the knowledge problem.
Okay, so do you want to go over the entire knowledge problem then, and then you can
I,
say like
I I
what?
don't I don't really care about the knowledge problem, but we could talk about the calculation problem. That's
Yeah,
really
go
what
ahead.
I haven't read that much into the knowledge problem, but that's really it. I don't think your solution's legitimate. So I mean, if you have another one, we could go
Well,
over
no,
that.
because I'm asking to quantify because I've never read the ECP myself. I've only done this based upon like the learning I have based upon like what people have told me about the ECP
Oh
is that we
God,
didn't
no
have
one
like
knows what it is.
I know exactly. That's my whole point
Yeah,
is that
no,
no one knows
it's
what the fuck
like
the
I
so.
ECP is.
actually just wrote a paper on it. One second, I could probably
I'm reading Bean's document right now, or not right now.
Bean's document is
Trash.
yeah. I mean,
Honestly, just like no one
uh,
knows what the ECP is at all.
I mean,
Well,
no,
no,
I mean there are a few people who know what it is, but like none of them talk. They're all like super small. Like
I'll admit when people started saying ECP at the beginning, I knew immediately like nobody knew what it was. Like the only people who knew what it was people who actually studied like read theory, which is like very little people, and
Yeah.
like those are the only people who knew what ECP was. You
no,
know,
I was going back through like my old Discord messages and I said ECP, how do you allocate resources? And
I
and
did the
like
same thing.
and someone asked me why couldn't we? I was like, well, the ECP proves it. And I just didn't give any substantiation. It was funny.
Yeah, like and
Honestly, yeah, no, that's literally how everyone who says ECP is. It's so cringe.
all
Yeah, I
right.
mean, Hampton Hampton likes to say that he understands the calculation problem, but
He
I
doesn't.
would actually LARP against him on the ECP, and actually I'll DM him right now and I'll ask him to debate on the calculation problem because I
Like,
genuinely don't think he knows what it is.
He doesn't know. I've talked to him. He doesn't know. He doesn't know about it.
I used
But
to think Hammy was a lot smarter. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. I thought he was a lot
Oh
smarter.
no, same here. Honestly, same here.
Like,
It's because he just
I'm
uses like the
not
words
trying to
that
talk
Hoff
bad.
uses.
Yeah, I'm not trying to talk bad or anything.
I am.
Well, like I used to think he was a lot smarter, and so like when I asked him like okay, so he thought like I don't know what you think of the Gilded Age, Parker, but he thought the Gilded Age was like a complete free market, like there were no regulations whatsoever.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, like even you will admit like there was some kind of regulations within the market. Like now it was very little compared to what we have today.
Yeah, because they had to, because else like they can completely monopolize the market.
Well, no. Actually,
That's my argument, at least.
well,
That's
I
what
mean,
everyone agrees
so
with.
I asked him, you know, how did monopolies form in the Gilded Age? And he's like, because like he conceded to the point that monopolies form on their own. And you know, I don't know how you feel about that part. I'm assuming you feel that they fit.
I'm assuming he would
so-
say that's right.
Yeah, and
Calculation
so
problem would actually be a problem with calculation with monopolies because they don't have like and this is actually why the Walmart argument's wrong too, because they have access to an external market which allows them to like simulate calculation.
well, like what was it like
And then
like so many people like or what was it I asked him like and like I said he said that it was a complete free market. It was not a free market. And so like I immediately knew that fact that he was not as smart as I thought he did, because even who's not a very smart capitalist, I'm trying to think who's not a smart capitalist, like everyone I know is pretty smart, like I don't know, but like even like most capitalists will admit that there was some kind of regulation within the Gilded Age, you know. And the reason why like I like this is my conclusion, is that the reason why there was monopolies was because they received tons of subsidization.
yeah, actually, in regards to ECP, like Rothbard actually sort of touches on how monopolies and the ECP are sort of related, because he talks about like vertical integration in a firm. It's like, I forgot what page. It's in chapter 10 of MES. He basically just says like that there's an external market for these large companies, which allows them to simulate economic calculation. But if we have a total monopoly, which would be synonymous to like a socialist state in regard, or just states in general, actually, because they would all be monopolies. Basically, the calculation problem would apply at least in some regards, depending on how large the monopoly was. Like with something that controlled all the industries, the EC would apply in its entirety. But for like a minarchist state, for example, which controlled like the police, the judge, and would be like a small state, they would have whatever the internal transfers wouldn't be as on the same magnitude, basically.
Wait, so one more thing before I go, because one more thing, last thing, I promise. Do you believe America's capitalist?
Yes.
Yeah.
What like, do you believe that we privately own the means of production?
Like,
Yeah,
you're basically going to say
know.
that like if there's any type of like government intervention, then it's not. But the thing
Sure.
is, there are different forms of capitalism. It's not just like your form of capitalism. So you can say
So
that
like,
your form of capitalism.
excuse me, free market. That's what I guess.
Yeah, you can say that it's not free market capitalist. That's what you can say, but you can't say it's not capitalist. You
Okay.
get the difference between the two?
No, I know.
No,
There's a
I'd say
difference.
it's capitalist.
No, okay. So I know that it has some kind of capitalist like market, but I just want to ask you, like, do you still believe that? That's what I want to ask you. And so yeah. And then one more thing before I go. Parker, what is a state?
State is a monopoly on violence or the organs for class rule.
Yeah, I like that definition.
Yeah, you asked me this last time too.
Yeah, I know. I love asking that. You know, that was such a funny video, man. Like the way it was edited. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, I know. I did see that shit.
I'm gonna go ahead and head out. I'm gonna hand the host to Spec. How do I head the host?
All right. Yeah, sure. We could if you have any like contentions or like just questions about the calculation.
Who's host? Am I host?
I think it's still Christian. You're just co-host, yeah.